Let me ask you something. Have you ever opened up a session that someone sent you and you notice wrong file format, wrong sample rate, vocals are clipping, and nothing is routed correctly? Yup, it's a headache. So today I'm going to show you how to set up your session professionally so your vocal recordings will sound clean, organized, and ready for mixing before you even hit record. And trust me, this setup is going to save you about 80% of all the mistakes beginners do. All right, first thing first, let's create a new session. This window right here is where your recording quality is decided. Not the microphone, not even the plugin chain. Right here is where it all begins. All right, we're gonna start by naming the song, and I suggest the artist name followed by the song name. Next thing, let's select the location of where we're gonna save our session. And since I work off of external drives, I'm going to browse, locate my external drive, locate my Pro Tools folder, and open. Now that we have that set, let's set up the quality for recording. All right, starting with file type. File type, Pro Tools gives you two options. That is AIFF and Waves. Wave is the industry standard. It's compatible with every single DAW, and it's the best for collaborating. So if you're recording and somebody else is gonna mix it, this is the best for that. AIFF works too, but it's not as commonly used, right? So we're gonna stick to Wave. All right, and moving right along, we're gonna go to the sample rate. For audio, the sample rate standard is 44.1. However, for video, the standard is 48K. And since just about everything that we record in 2026 is bound to end up on a video, let's stick to 48. You can choose a higher sample rate. However, you're probably not even gonna hear the difference, and it's gonna make your system struggle to handle it. So unless you know for sure that your system can handle it, stick to 48. Moving right along to bit depth, this is where you set the headroom for your recording session. Pro Tools gives you three options: 16-bit, 24-bit, and 32-bit float. 32-bit float is kind of future-proof. It's not necessary, in my opinion, to use that as of today, but you can use it if you'd like. And 16, unless you're planning on doing some CD deliveries, you don't need 16-bit depth. So let's stick to 24. 24 gives you plenty of headrooms to be able to record and not worry about your recordings clipping. For IO setting, that's where we're going to tell Pro Tools what format we're going to be listening in. Essentially, here you select your speaker count and you let Pro Tools know. For this video, we're going to stick to stereo. And from here, we can create. Now that we have our session created, it's time to actually move on to the actual recording settings. First thing first, we want to go to setup and we're going to select playback engine. That's where we're going to select our interface. Right here, if it says anything other than your interface name, you want to change that to whatever the name your interface is. In my case, I'm using the Scarlett 18920, so that's the interface I'm selecting. You don't want to see anything else aside your interface name. And then the next thing I'm going to change is the buffer size. Since this is a recording session that we are prepping for, you want to have as low of a buffer size as possible. Basically, start with 128 and try to go lower as much as you think your computer can handle. For most modern day M series computers, you can go 60/40/32. However, I'm going to stick to 128 because that is low enough to where I'm not even going to notice the latency. So I'm going to stick to that. If it is a problem, I can always back off on it and go lower. But for now, 128 is fine. All right, hit OK. And voila. Quickly, I was already on those settings when my session was created. So Pro Tools actually did nothing. But if you actually had to change the settings, what Pro Tools would do is would close out the session until you finish your setup and it will reopen the session. So not to worry if yours looks slightly different from mine. That's because mine, I didn't actually change anything. Everything was already set up. That's why it didn't change. Moving right along, we're gonna go right back up to setup and change IO. For this IO setting, what we're gonna do, I like to start with the beginning. So we're gonna go to input and I'm gonna click on default, go to output, and do default and bus default and hit OK. All right, so what that just did is basically it reset Pro Tools to match what my interface is. All the inputs that's available in Pro Tools right now is going to be matched to my interface, and all the outs are going to be matched to my interface. That is something you want to have set up prior to the session so you don't have to go hunting for input counts while you're trying to record. All right, so now that we are here, we are pretty much ready to start. But we don't have any instrumentals in yet, and we don't have any audio tracks. So let's set those up. So I'm going to start by Command Shift N, and I'm going to start by creating a stereo track, and I'm going to call that instrumental. Create. And I'm going to do Command Shift N again and do 4 mono audio tracks. I'm not going to name them here. I'm going to name them afterwards. All right. Now, what exactly are those tracks for? Starting with instrumental, obviously, that's where the beat is going to sit. And then the record track, that's the track that I'm going to use to record everything. And for the playback tracks, that's what I'm going to use to monitor everything that is recorded. The consolidated track is basically there as a safety net. I only use it basically once I'm done with a section. I can consolidate that section into one track here. I'm moving on because I'm going to reuse the playback tracks over and over until the entire session is done. So I have the consolidate there just as a safety net so I don't duplicate or accidentally erase anything. For the record track, you want to make sure that your Pro Tools input matches with your interface to where you have your microphone plugged into, right? So for me, in this case, it's channel 4. So I'm going to select interface, channel 4. And I'm going to record and enable that track. That way, it can actually record something. All right, from here, now this is bonus. You don't have to do it this way. You can literally leave it the way it is and start recording. You are good to go. However, for me, since I'm monitoring through my interface, there's a few more steps that we want to do to make sure we have the best possible monitoring system. So what I'm going to do is, starting with the click, I'm going to change the output to a pre-designated channel on my interface, and that is output 5 and 6. And for the instrumental, I'm going to change that to another designated output, which is 3 and 4. And then for my playback tracks and the consolidated tracks, I am also going to change those over to the same as the instrumental playback. The reason why I have it routed that way is because for the Cubase, I'm going to do that actually in the control app for my interface. So I have it set up in a way I can control the instrumental, the vocals, and even at some point I do like some effects tracks as well that I can control them separately from each other. So that's why I do it this way. Now that we're here, what you can do is save this as a template for future reference, right? So go ahead and go to, make sure you have Pro Tools selected, go to File, Save as Template, and give it a name. All right, so now we have that save as a template. You never have to set that up again. Next time you're starting a session, just make sure to, next time you're setting up for a session, make sure to use that template and everything will be good to go. Keep in mind, if you change your interface, you have to do the IO and the playback engine. So that is pretty much it as far as setting up goes. Now we're ready to start recording. But first, let's input our beat. So for that, I'm gonna do Shift Command I. And I was already in that folder, so my beat is here. But otherwise, you just look for the folder, find the beat, click it, and we wanna hit convert. Not add, we wanna hit convert. What that does, basically, if you just do add adds the track to the session. However, it doesn't change the folder. If in the future, for whatever reason, you had to move that instrumental somewhere else, Pro Tools is not going to be able to find it. So your session is going to open without the instrumental. However, if you just convert it over, then Pro Tools create a copy of it within the new session. So if you move the original, no worries, you can still open up your session. So always convert. Once we do that, Pro Tools is going to ask us to actually create an audio file in our session. That's where all the audio is going to be recorded to. All right, so we want to hit open. And it asks, do we want to do a new track or clip list? In this case, I'm going to select clip list because I don't want it to create a new track, right? So hit OK. And it inputs our audio and it sends it right here to the right on our clip list. And all you got to do is just click on it and drag it to the session. Voila, and we are done. At this point, you are pretty much ready to go. But first, you want to match your tempo. You want to match the session tempo to your file tempo, and the easiest way to do that is select the actual tempo up here, the actual count. And as Pro Tools is playing the beat, you just tap on the letter T, and that's going to change your tempo. Right? Just do it a few times until you get the tempo to actually lock in. If you know the tempo, type it in. If you don't know it, then just play and tap. All right, I think I got that pretty dead on. But to make sure, let's go ahead and test it out. All right, so I'm gonna bring in the metronome, and we're gonna play it and see how it sounds. One thing we forgot to do, right? I have the tempo written in my transport area here. We have it at 102, but it's not actually, it didn't actually send it to the session. So what you want to do is just hit, with that highlighted, just hit enter. Now that tempo is written to your session. So we should be good now. When I play it, the tempo should match the beat. All right, that sounds pretty dead on, but just to make sure, let's go to the end and play it there and see how good it is. And that is pretty much it. We got our session set up, beat loaded, tempo mapped. We got a record track, we got a playback track, everything is ready to go. The only thing left to do is actually record. If you want to see me do a video on setting up a Q-Mix using the Scarlett 18920 and Pro Tools, drop it down in the comment and let me know, and I'll make sure to work on that video for you. All right, I'll see you on the next one.